Welcome back to another episode of Steak Salad Sundays. Every Sunday night, I make a different variation of steak salad. Tonight's salad is inspired by a Philly cheesesteak. I started off by slicing up some bell peppers, onion, and mushrooms. I used every color of bell pepper because I wanted it to be a nice and vibrant salad. And then I sliced up the onions super thin. I sauteed these up on the stove and kept it super simple because I really wanted the flavors of the vegetables to shine through. I cooked them up in olive oil and added salt, pepper, and a dash of Worcestershire sauce. For our base, we're using some little gem lettuce. It has a nice structure, so it holds up well with the sauteed veggies on top. For the crunch, we're adding croutons. Since a Philly cheesesteak is usually served up on a roll, I thought some big garlic butter croutons would pair nicely here. After the croutons were done, I roasted up some garlic for our creamy roasted garlic dressing. I just drizzled with a little bit of olive oil and salt and then roasted up in the oven for about 45 minutes until it was nice and caramelized. I used an immersion blender to make this nice and creamy and then added a splash of water at the end to thin it out. A Philly cheesesteak would not be a Philly cheesesteak without the cheese, of course, so I made a simple cheese sauce with provolone, white American, and cheddar cheese to drizzle on top. For the steak, we're using ribeye. If you've been following this series, you know my husband always grills it up and it just comes out perfect every time. I start by dressing my greens before adding all of the toppings and finishing off with our cheese drizzle. As always, I hope you guys enjoy this one and happy Sunday. Welcome back to another episode of Steak Salad Sundays. Every Sunday night, I make a different variation of steak salad. Tonight's salad is for my pepperoncini lovers. I love pepperoncinis, so it was about time I finally incorporate into a steak salad. For the toppings, we're going to be adding some cherry tomatoes, thinly sliced shallot, Persian cucumber, and pepperoncinis. I'm adding both pre-sliced and full pepperoncinis because you can never have enough. For the crunch, I'm adding some pepperoncini flavored kettle chips, and then we're going to be serving this all up over a bed of butter lettuce. I like to just gently rip my butter lettuce into little bite-sized pieces. To complement the sort of tangy heat flavor from the pepperoncinis, I thought a bold cheese would pair it really well here, so I'm adding one of my favorite blue cheeses. And then for the dressing, to tie all of the flavors together, I'm making a pepperoncini flavored ranch. I make this ranch all the time and dip everything in it. For the steak, we're using ribeye. If you've been following this series, you know my husband always grills up the steak and it just comes out perfect every time. Starting with a bed of butter lettuce, I add all of my toppings, the sliced steak, and then I finish it off with our homemade pepperoncini ranch. As always, I hope you guys enjoy this one and happy Sunday. Welcome back to another episode of Steak Salad Sundays. Every Sunday night, I make a different variation of steak salad. A friend brought me these beautiful figs from her backyard, so I wanted to incorporate them into my salad this week. For the toppings, we're going to be adding the figs, some sliced pear for a little bit of texture, and then some thinly sliced shallot for a little bit of bite. Fig, prosciutto, and goat cheese are like the ultimate combo in my mind, so we're also going to be adding some prosciutto for a little bit of saltiness. One of my favorite salad toppings is crispy prosciutto, so we're just going to bake these up until they're nice and crispy and they add the perfect crunch. I wanted to add a little extra pizzazz to my goat cheese, so I added some honey, crushed red pepper flakes, salt, pepper, and a fig, and mashed it up until it was sort of creamy. It looks kind of gross, but I promise it tastes delicious. To add in a little extra crunch, I toasted up some chopped walnuts in some Calabrian chili butter to also add a little bit of spice. For the dressing, I really wanted to tie in some additional fig flavor, so I'm making a fig blackberry balsamic dressing. I threw everything into a jar and then used an immersion blender to get it nice and creamy. For the steak, we're using ribeye. If you've been following this series, you know my husband always grills the steak and it just comes out perfect every time. Starting with a bed of arugula, I add all of my toppings, the sliced steak, and our homemade fig blackberry balsamic dressing. As always, I hope you guys enjoy this one and happy Sunday. Welcome back to another episode of Steak Salad Sundays. Every Sunday night, I make a different variation of steak salad. You guys know I love a good twist on a Caesar salad, so tonight we're going to be making a salt and vinegar chip themed steak Caesar. I started off by chopping up my crispy romaine hearts. Next, I grated up some high quality Parmesan cheese. And then instead of croutons or toasted breadcrumbs, we're going to be using some crushed up salt and vinegar chips. They add the perfect crunch and the perfect tang. For the dressing, I'm making my Caesar dressing the way I normally make it, but I'm replacing the lemon juice with a little bit of malt vinegar. This ties in really nicely with the overall salt and vinegar flavor profile we've got going on here. For the steak, I'm using ribeye. If you've been following this series, you know my husband always grills the steak up and it just comes out perfect every time. Starting with a base of romaine, I add a little bit of dressing and toss well so my greens get nice and coated before adding the remaining toppings. As always, I hope you guys enjoy this one and happy Sunday.